So this week I was just reflecting on and noticing a lot of the commentary going around about this idea of the world opening up again. You know, people, businesses opening, those kinds of things. And as I've sat with kind of some of my friends or just watching things on Facebook or just even noticing in myself, what I've felt is this kind of push me, pull you kind of experience. You know, on one hand, I've heard people say things like, we have to open things up. You know, there's too much unemployment, the economy can't handle it. You know, you have some governors that are saying in the background they don't have the funds to really keep their unemployment going. And certainly there's lots of people out of jobs. Yeah. And then on the other side, you hear people saying it's too early, we don't have control, we're going to get another upsurge of people getting sick. And also, on top of that, you know, a lot of gratitude that people have had for this kind of, in some ways I think of it as a retreat. You know, it's been hard for people in terms of finances and those kinds of things and not knowing. But a lot of people have said that they've discovered things about their life that they're really glad they found. You know, like taking walks or connecting with family again. Those kinds of things. Or spending time with their kids in a way that they wouldn't have done normally right now. And so with that, there's a lot of gifts that come. And I've heard some people saying things like, let's not go back to normal. I don't want to go back to normal. I don't want to give up these things that I found. And makes sense. It reminds me of a Rumi poem, you know, that many of you have probably heard. I'll just read a couple of lines from it. The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want in life. Don't go back to sleep. And you can feel the truth in those words. You know, we don't want to go back to sleep. Makes sense. But how do you do that? How do you not go back to sleep on the things that are important to you? You know, a lot of the things that we've done were habits that we had, old patterns that we had, and they're pretty ingrained, some of them. You know, there's this quote that I had found by Henry Adams, and he said, chaos breeds life, but order breeds habits. And if you think about it, that actually feels really true. You know, in the chaos that we've had because we don't know, we can't plan for certain things, going to work or our kids being at home, those kinds of things, you actually end up having to live life. You just kind of have to go, and you have to go with it, and you have to flow, and all your habits start to fall apart. And there's a real charge in that. There's a real aliveness that comes back to us because of that. And so going back into order is going to bring up all those old habits again. You know, maybe, hopefully not all the same old ones. And it's easy for our ordinary mind to get caught up in that. You know, at some point here, I don't know what else to call it, but the machine will get going again. And people will start to tell you or tell all of us, you have to go out and do this. You have to buy wrinkle cream again. You have to put your kids in daycare that many hours. You have to work that hard or that many hours away from home. And there's advertisements as well that happen, right? and they're very seductive, and it's easy to get seduced by them with our ordinary mind. And then there's also the anxiety of ordinary mind. You know, ordinary mind, when it's anxious, it's always looking to bind its anxiety somehow. And a lot of ways that people do that is through buying, spending, also eating. You know, there have been so many jokes about quarantine eating and the quarantine 15 and, you know, let's all be nice to each other on the other side of this because of that. So our ordinary mind can get really caught up in anxiety and really start to spin out. And that's where those old anxiety binding habits come back. So tonight, I want to talk about how we can work with that for ourselves. You know I have the things that I'm grateful for and the things I don't want to give up in going back to whatever normal is. And I imagine that you have them as well. But how do you find the wherewithal to hold on to what you know now? How do you find that? How do you rest in that and not get caught up? So that's what I want to do tonight with our sit, is just touch into the place where we get to do that. We get to find that refuge. So I just invite you to go ahead and close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And if not, to just look very gently, softly, about 3 feet in front of you on the floor. If you'd like to lay down, feel free to lay down. I just suggest that you put a pillow or something to lift your knees. Put a pillow under your knees, and that will help your lower back drop so you can be more comfortable for a while. So we begin by just noticing where we are right in this moment. Just taking a little light inventory, noticing how I'm showing up. No aversion, no problem with it. Conditions are such. And if you're having a hard time today, just having a little kindness toward yourself. And just noticing what a little kindness does to your mind, your attitude, your experience. Perhaps it softens it a bit. And then gently letting yourself begin to breathe out any stress or tension you're noticing. And you can begin by noticing how your body's doing. So if there's any tightness or bracing or pain, just gently breathing it out, letting it go on the out breath. In other words, we're not holding it in our body. We're not holding on to it. And we don't have to breathe it out harsh or hard. As I've said, it's like letting a butterfly fly out of your hand. And if the same tension comes back, that's okay. There's always another breath. And I invite you to also notice any mental tension, stressful thoughts, or racing thoughts. Again, breathing those out on the out-breath. And we can also include our feelings. We may notice a little anxiety or some worry or sadness. So anything that's distracting you or causing discomfort, just noticing and letting it go. And as we do this, we just empty out. We empty out the day, all the stories. Allowing our body and minds to soften and relax. And as you empty out, just letting yourself notice if there's any quiet or spaciousness. And letting yourself rest in that quiet, that spacious. And you can let yourself anchor in this quiet by just breathing it, breathing into the quiet. Letting it get a little bigger if it wants. And knowing this as your quiet. This is your quiet behind all the noise or underneath all the noise. And because it's a part of you, a deeper part, it's safe to rest here. And if your mind jumps up to thinking again or stories, you just gently begin breathing those out again. Just letting yourself empty. And feeling the spacious quiet. noticing its stillness. And tonight I invite you to take another step with the quiet. And let yourself become it for a moment. You can just let go of your stories. Let go of your body for a moment. And just let the quiet energy be your body. So it's as if the quiet energy is breathing. And just notice some of its qualities. For instance, it's quiet. It's peaceful. It may feel very calm to you. It may feel spacious. And relaxed. And what if you can just let yourself rest here? take refuge. And in this quiet place, I invite you to just allow yourself to remember any nourishment or good things, discoveries you've had during this stay-at-home period. The things that you've treasured. And now you can gently let those go and just come back to the quiet. Feeling spacious and quiet. Letting this be normal. And being this quiet energy, just noticing that others are calling for the world to open up again, to go back to normal. And just let this quiet energy notice that, watch that. And notice the attitude of the quiet energy. Does it need to go back to that normal? Does it feel pulled back into the world, or does it just sit back watching? Does it need anything? Or is it content unto itself? And so they can call the world forward again. And we can notice it from here. And you can go ahead now and let go of the world calling forward. And just come back to this quiet, spacious energy. Letting go of all the stories again. And just rest here. Remembering what it's like to feel this. So I just want to read this poem by Thomas Merton, who is a beloved Christian monk. May we all grow in grace and peace, and not neglect the silence that is printed in the center of our being. It will not fail us. You know, in the world, there's often this pull to go with the flow with everybody. And sometimes it feels great and it's right for us, and other times it's not quite right. We have to listen to the inner drum, right? The inner call. And when that is true for us, in a lot of ways we're aligning ourselves with the old practices. Like, if you think about monks and nuns and going on retreat or illnesses at times, there are these times in life where, or opportunities in life, where we don't step in to the flood that's happening. And a lot of times we think of renouncing, that monks and nuns and people on retreat renounce. And you think of it as a giving up of something. Oh, I'm giving up what the rest of the world is doing. But for those who make that choice, it's not an experience of giving up anything at all. Because when you're in touch with this deeper wisdom within, this silence, as Thomas Merton is calling it, the quiet energy, there's such a fullness that's there. There's such a contentment and enoughness. And perhaps you felt that as we were sitting, that as you're in contact with that and the world is pulling forward, come with us, you have to, come on. You can feel perhaps that maybe this part of you may not feel as strongly pulled. And we don't feel as strongly pulled when we're connected to this rich part of ourself, this contented part of ourself. In those moments, we feel happy. We have enough. We don't need to buy anything. Yeah. The word renounce is actually interesting. The Latin word for it means to protest against. To protest against, to say, I don't think so, but thanks anyway. Yeah. Or the other way I think about it is when we're integrated with this deeper part of ourself. The word integrate comes from the word Latin integer, which means to be whole, to be complete. It also means to be untouched by the world, like the world just can't quite pull you in the flood. And if we're someone who, I don't know, maybe if you're one of those people who feels called during this transition to be active, let's say, you want to help the world change or not go back to that old normal, it's not helpful to be caught up in the flood, to be caught up in the flood of anger or fear or panic. None of that actually helps us serve in those moments. When you're caught in the flood, you're just flowing down the river with everybody else. You might be not happy about it, but you're still in the river. Whereas when we're in touch with this deeper part of ourselves, it's like being on the shore. There's still a flood happening, but we're not caught in it. And from there, we can do the most service we feel called to do, if that's our calling. Or we don't feel that we have to jump in or get pulled in with everybody else. We can listen to our own call and do what's right for us, to live an authentic life, a meaningful life for us. I just want to read a couple more poems here. Or not poems, but just words of wisdom. This is from Frank Lloyd Wright. And if you remember his architecture, it's very Zen inspired, I think. Very simple. He says, as we live and as we are, simplicity, and I mean simplicity with a capital S, is difficult to comprehend nowadays. We are no longer truly simple. We no longer live in simple terms or in simple places. Life is more complex. It's more of a struggle now. But it is now valiant to be simple. It is a courageous thing to do, to be simple. It is a spiritual thing to comprehend what simplicity means. I think that's really beautiful. And then this from Leo Tolstoy. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing him or herself. I love that. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing him or herself. And so as I think about this opportunity, if you're one of the people that feels like the world needs to change, that maybe there's a new normal to be had, then I think we do far better being connected to this deep, compassionate wisdom inside, rather than being caught up in the flood of jumping back into the old ways, or the flood of anxiety, or the floods of have-tos, the flood of anger. Much better if we're connected to this deep, deep, stable wisdom. And then we have a chance to do something new, because we're changing ourselves. We're not falling back into our old patterns, our old ways of being, our old habits. Yeah. So, So I hope this is of service and help to you. I went ahead and put up a recording of this sit tonight that we did, an introduction to this deeper, quieter part of ourselves. Some people call it stillness, some people call it space or spaciousness, peace. I like to call it essence, because it feels like the essence of something, the essence of me. And it can be the essence of stillness and peace and quiet, those things as well. So I hope you can stay connected to this deeper part within you as the world comes back online, so that you can be true to yourself of whatever your new normal is, and create the kind of world that we could all flourish in, we could all do really well in, whatever that means for you. So let's just take a moment, a mindful moment, to just again be with our intention and share what we're doing here so that it is of service. So I just invite you to close your eyes if you like, or look at the ground again. And may these practices that we're engaged in, may they keep our heart and mind healthy and stable, peaceful and wise, as we transition into this world opening up again. And may the peace we find ripple out from our own lives, so that peace can be found by all beings. May these practices find their way to all beings on the planet, so that they may know their safety, their quiet, their peace, as they negotiate the world. So, thank you everybody. Love you. Having fun. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. Just go to maureenfallon-cyr.com, and there's a link there that you can, or my email address is there. So, take care. Have a wonderful week as things begin to open. And be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. There's the most happiness. Yeah?